Carlo Acutis faced one of life's most challenging battles. Just 3 days after being diagnosed with aggressive leukemia, his earthly journey came to an end. However, what makes this story extraordinary is not just the speed with which the disease took him, but the way he faced it, immersed in his deep devotion to the Eucharist. That moment of faith and suffering was shared during an emotional event held in Assisi, organized by the local diocese. Father Sandro Villa, chaplain at San Gerardo Hospital, was by Carlo's side during those last days. He clearly remembers a day in October 2006 when he met the young man who seemed to already sense his fate. The priest had been called to administer the sacraments of the anointing of the sick and the Eucharist. As he entered the room at the end of the hall, he found Carlo, pale but surprisingly serene. Carlo's calmness, despite the severity of the situation, left the chaplain deeply impressed, almost as if the young man was prepared for something far greater than Father Villa could comprehend at that moment. That encounter was brief but deeply moving. Carlo stayed in the hospital for just a few days, and the conversation between him and the priest was short, limited by the intense pain Carlo was feeling. The words exchanged were few but full of meaning. When the priest left, accompanying Carlo's mother to the hospital exit, the weight of the tragedy was evident in the mother's expression, marked by deep sorrow. "We will do it in a sacred way," she said, words that echoed in Father Villa's mind, even though he couldn't fully understand them at the time. Was this a premonition? As the years passed and Father Villa moved farther from the hospital, he learned that Carlo had been declared venerable. The brief and simple encounter began to take on new meaning for the chaplain. He realized that their meeting had been carefully planned by God, who wished to convey something through Carlo's serenity and faith. The young man's determination to face his illness with courage and faith left a deep mark, not only on those who knew him but on all who heard his story. During the event in Assisi, doctors who accompanied Carlo, such as Andrea Biondi and Monchi Lo Yankovic, also shared their memories. For them, Carlo was like a meteorite, passing quickly through Earth but leaving a lasting impact. Despite the brief time they knew him, his sweet eyes, attention to detail, courage, and deep empathy left an indelible mark. Carlo, even in the face of such an intense battle, never hesitated to live his faith with intensity and dedication, teaching that life, whether short or long, must be lived in service to others. But what drove this young man to face it all with such serenity? Monsignor Domenico Sorrentino, the bishop of the diocese, participating in the meeting, made a powerful comparison between Carlo and Saint Francis of Assisi. Both, even in the face of illness and death, found an invitation to draw closer to God. Just like Saint Francis, who praised the creatures even while ill, Carlo, in his own suffering, showed a joy and communion with God that profoundly influenced those around him. It is this same joy, this serenity in the midst of suffering, that continues to inspire and challenge all who know his story. The director of health ministry brought reflections that revealed Carlo's deep faith during his short period of illness. He emphasized that suffering, inevitable in life, can become a path toward a more intimate encounter with the Eucharist. For him, suffering should not be exalted or sought after, but understood and redefined. It is a natural dimension of existence, just like death, and what determines our response to it is the choice between hope and rejection. Carlo, in his illness and death, found special meaning in this deep connection with the Eucharist, something that transformed his suffering into an act of faith. From this perspective, figures like Carlo Acutis offer a Christian vision of suffering, where Jesus is present in every pain. When he declares, "I will not leave you alone," he reaffirms that he will be with us every day until the end of time. This promise is not just spiritual. It becomes a living reality in the Eucharist. It was this understanding that allowed Carlo to connect so deeply with the sacrament, as he saw in the Eucharist the real and continuous presence of Jesus in his life. But how did this transform the way he lived and faced pain? The director also recalled that the commandment, "Love one another as I have loved you," is closely linked to the Eucharist. This sacrament is the core of our faith, a symbol of hope, and the highest expression of divine love. Those who suffer can find companionship in God, as he experienced that same darkness through Jesus. In Christ, Every suffering has the potential to become joy, not as an obligation, but as a real possibility of transformation. He then asked, how can we turn suffering into light? In the midst of so much dark suffering, so many sorrows crying out for clarity, how do we find that light? The pain of losing a child, for example, is one of the most intense things one can imagine. And that was the reality faced by many who, even walking alongside God, experience immense tragedies. Carlo, even at such a young age, found in Jesus the strength to enter a new sphere of life, where he felt in daily communion with the Lord. This young man, who lived his faith with authenticity and depth, became an inspiration to thousands of young people around the world. His devotion to the Eucharist and his love for the Catholic Church transcended the barriers of his short life, profoundly impacting contemporary youth. But what made Carlo even more special was his ability to unite faith and technology at a time when few saw that connection. Carlo was known for his passion for technology and his ability to use it for evangelization. He created a website documenting Eucharistic miracles, using the Internet as a powerful tool to spread the faith and educate about the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. This project not only showcased his technical mastery but also his deep faith and desire to share the beauty of Christianity with the world. But how did such an ordinary young man, who played video games and loved computers, become a spiritual icon for so many? Many young people were drawn to Carlo's life because he was one of them. Someone living a normal life but also having an intense spirituality and an unwavering commitment to God. Testimonies from young people around the world reveal how Carlo's life inspired them to draw closer to the faith, attend Mass more frequently, and devote themselves to Eucharistic adoration. His example of authentic Christian life became a model to follow. Youth movements dedicated to his memory emerged in various places, encouraging young people to follow Carlo's example. At spiritual retreats, youth gatherings, and on social media, Carlo is frequently mentioned as a model of contemporary holiness. His beatification served as a catalyst for many young people who, inspired by his story, decided to live their faith with more fervor and commitment. But how was this formal process of recognizing Carlo's holiness by the Church? The beatification process of Carlo Acutis was long and rigorous, involving several stages. In 2013, he was declared Servant of God, a title marking the official start of a canonization process. From there, a detailed investigation into his virtuous life began, with the gathering of testimonies and evidence. Interviews with family, friends, schoolmates, and others who knew him revealed the portrait of a young man with deep spirituality, an extraordinary love for the Eucharist, and a life of exemplary virtues. In 2018, Pope Francis recognized Carlo Acutis' heroic virtues, granting him the title of Venerable. This recognition is reserved for those who have demonstrated living Christian virtues to an exceptional degree. For Carlo, this was another step on his path to sainthood, but there was still one final confirmation, the verification of a miracle attributed to his intercession, a crucial step for his beatification. The miracle in question involved the inexplicable healing of a Brazilian girl suffering from a severe pancreatic anomaly. The doctors were puzzled, unable to explain how the girl fully recovered after her parents asked for Carlo Acutis' intercession. This miracle was accepted as the necessary proof that Carlo was in heaven, interceding for those who called upon him. But what happened after this extraordinary event? The beatification ceremony for Carlo took place on October 10, 2020, at the Basilica of St. Francis in Assisi. This place was carefully chosen, as Carlo had a special devotion to St. Francis and often visited Assisi for spiritual inspiration. During the ceremony, he was presented to the world as a model of holiness for the digital age, someone who used modern communication media to spread the faith and promote Christian values. More than just a celebration, Carlo's beatification was a call to the global youth. It was an invitation for young people around the world to follow his example of love for the Eucharist, devotion to Mary, and commitment to living a genuine Christian life. His story continues not only to inspire but also to challenge young people to live their faith with courage and passion, reflecting the light of Christ in a world that, at times, seems shrouded in darkness. Even after his premature departure, Carlo Acutis left an indelible mark on digital evangelization. Throughout his short life, he demonstrated a unique ability to unite Christian faith and technology in an innovative and inspiring way. Today, this combination continues to deeply influence how Christianity is shared in the virtual world, especially among younger generations. Carlo understood the power of the Internet as a medium of communication without borders. He believed that the global network of computers could be used for something greater than entertainment and superficial information. It could be a powerful vehicle for evangelization. His creation of a website dedicated to documenting Eucharistic miracles is a clear example of how he used his technical knowledge to serve God and bring the faith to a wider audience. Carlo knew that, in an increasingly connected world, the message of Christ needed to be present in the digital realm. After his beatification, Carlo Acutis' impact on digital evangelization intensified. Inspired by his example, numerous online projects emerged with the purpose of continuing his mission. Websites, blogs, YouTube channels, and social media profiles were created to share his story and promote Christian values in an accessible and engaging way for young people. Many of these projects take the same approach that Carlo used: simple, direct, and engaging language capable of touching the hearts of those who might never have stepped into a church but find in digital platforms a new door to faith. Additionally, prayer, meditation, and Bible study apps began including content related to the life and legacy of Carlo Acutis, making his story even more known among young people. Some of these apps were even developed by young people who were directly inspired by Carlo to create tools that merge spirituality and technology. This growing movement shows how Carlo's testimony continues to influence digital evangelization, creating new ways for faith and technology to interact. Carlo Acutis' influence is also reflected in how the Catholic Church has adapted to the digital world. Many religious leaders recognize the importance of following Carlo's footsteps, using social media and other online platforms to reach believers around the world. Carlo's beatification itself was streamed online, allowing thousands of people, especially young ones, to participate in the event and learn about his story, further reinforcing the need for the Church to be present in digital spaces. Carlo Acutis proved that technology, when used with purpose and faith, can be a powerful tool for evangelizing and bringing people closer to God. His legacy continues to inspire a new generation of digital evangelists, who seek to follow his example of using the Internet as a means to spread the light of Christ in a world that desperately needs it. And you, have you thought about how you can use technology to promote faith and make a difference in the world?